everybody, and welcome to Gaming Sanity Podcast 5. I'm your host, Mr. Black, alongside Asian Jesus. And this week we are going to be continuing our exploration of overlooked games. Now, the first one we've got on our list for today is Yakuza 4 on the PS3. Now, for me, the Yakuza series has always been sort of an overlooked series of games. Originally began in 2007 with Yakuza 1 on the PS1, Yakuza 2 came out, and then Yakuza 3 came out on the PS3. But unfortunately, Yakuza 3 in the West, when it was released to us, was cut to some degree. There was problems with hostess clubs and various other things. Whereas Yakuza 4 has been presented to us completely unedited and uncut. Now, one of the beauties of Yakuza 4, and is a bit of a difference in the series, is there's actually 4 main characters. Obviously, Kazuma Kiryu returns from the first 3 games. There is Shun Akiyama, a loan shark with a good heart but some mysterious motivations. There is Mayoshi Tanimura, a 29-year-old corrupt policeman who loves gambling. And then there's my personal favourite, Tiger Saejima, a 45-year-old former Yakuza who is currently in prison for murdering 18 Yakuza. Now, Matthew, are you aware of the Yakuza series, and have you had any particular experience with them?
Well, I've always seen Yakuza, like, it's, again, another game that just sits in the background kind of thing. I'll look into some of the videos, and I have always considered on picking up the game in the past before, but yeah, it's all about the time and what goes on in those games as well. And yeah,
I mean, they are quite they are big games. They are quite time consuming.
And pretty much, I've mainly stuck to a lot of Western games over the last few years. Again, it's when it comes to more of the Japanese games, they can just be long, and I do have an issue with, like, especially Capcom games where there's a lot of dialogue that's all just in text, and there's it's just all expressions, like simple gestures and that. I can never stand it. As one of the worst things, like when I played Dead Rising, where a lot of the communication's all in just text bubbles. Cutscenes are fantastic, and in Yakuza 4, cutscenes have been probably some of the best. Again, it's like one big long movie, but yeah,
it's amazing.
Just, when you're in that game world, it really does break you out of that immersion with that text. So I've kind of had to tiptoe around it, unfortunately. But,
there is actually in Yakuza 4 there is actually a bit more speech in the game. I mean, yeah, there is a lot of sort of text dialogue. But one thing I would say to you and other people is one of the beauties of this series is Sega are very aware that maybe some people haven't played them before, and there's a mode called Reminiscent Mode, where, for instance, say you buy this game, you can watch a movie of all the cutscenes and stuff from the other games as a film, so you can you can get used to all what's happened before, all the characters, because there are lots of characters, not just the main protagonist who you play as. I mean, there are lots of side characters and various people you have allegiances with and so forth. But the one thing this game is famous for is the cutscenes and its storylines, and the storylines in them are really good, I have to say. Film-worthy, definitely. I mean, I've had a friend of mine come round before, and he's watched some of it. He actually sat down and watched the Reminiscent Mode with me on Yakuza 3 of the previous 2 games. And he looked over and he said, this is like a film, this is amazing. And obviously, it's all in Japanese with really good subtitles. Now, for those of you not aware out there, the Yakuza games are generally split into sort of 3 main sections, really. There's the adventure mode, where you go around the environment, sort of, Tokyo and the red light areas and whatever. Going to convenience stores, buying power-ups, buying weapons, talking to people, furthering the story. And then, every now and again, you will get a random sort of guy come up to you who's maybe a Yakuza or just some random street punks, and they'll start giving you some hassle, and then it's battle mode time. And this is where you get to do some serious whoopings. Some serious whoopings come out. I have to say, some of the moves you can do, especially some of the finishing moves, are absolutely devastating. We'll put some footage over here to give an excellent example of that. Some devastating finishing moves, like suplexing people onto railings, smashing people's heads into walls and stuff. And there's a really visceral level of violence in the game, which is always nice, and is obviously going to be part of the being a Yakuza in real life. And obviously then there's what Sega call event mode, which is basically the cutscenes and the story, which are all really, really well rendered, fantastically acted as well, really good facial animations. Now, one of the sort of controversies in the series is the fact that it is very, very sort of impenetrable to some degree if you're not familiar with a lot of Japanese culture. The problem is, they've got a lot of these references to hostess clubs and all these other things that if you're not really into the Japanese culture, you wouldn't really get. And, in translation as well, I mean, they translate the game pretty much word for word from Japanese, so some of the humour and stuff can be lost if you're not very familiar with the Japanese stuff. But this is definitely one you should definitely seek out, Matthew, along with other people. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this one is uncut for the first time, which is really good. And the problem with this, and this is why I'm wanting to feature it on these Overlooked Games section, is because not enough people buy this. And there's also spin-offs of the series, which are like samurai, set in the samurai period and stuff. There's actually a new one coming out soon, which is going to be set in the samurai period, which I really want to play, but I don't fancy sitting through an entire Japanese playthrough.
Yeah, I mean, did see one about the zombies as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually really funny. That is a game where you can just literally switch your brain off and just start blasting away. There's actually one of the main characters from the game. He's a bit of a psychopath, and he's in it, and he ends up with this crazy arm cannon, and he's really funny. He is. He does some excellent work.
We all need a psycho. We all need one.
Yes, we do. And one of the things as well is, because we've never had our Shenmue series finished, which is just criminal in my opinion, as there were going to be 12 games of the series and we only got 2. I mean, come on Sega, just make one more just to finish the story. To some degree, Yakuza is kind of like the spiritual successor to Shenmue, in the sense of how the game plays and where how the cutscenes evolve and sort of the exploration and fighting. Were you ever familiar with the Shenmue series on the Dreamcast, or did you ever see number 2 on the Xbox?
Unfortunately, no. Mainly because when it came to stuff like Dreamcast, this was back in when I lived in England. The only Dreamcast I got to play would have been stuff like Crazy Taxi on my mate's one. So, it was really pop over to his and play what was on there. But never really got introduced to stuff like that, unfortunately. But I don't know. It's like stuff like Yakuza. I've now just been starting to get more into. It's like just especially Japanese style games, because really, it used to be the forefront was stuff like Final Fantasy for a good few years, and honestly, I'm one of those people that just could never stand Final Fantasy, and it did just create that thing in my head that I really didn't want to touch. I'm going to sound like some weird hillbilly folk. I don't want to touch no foreign stuff. But, it was
you've been playing too much GTA.
Here's the thing. It's like I got such a bad feeling come out from games like Final Fantasy, like those RPGs and that. I really just didn't want to touch.
Which particular Final Fantasies were it? Was it the PS2 ones or?
Oh, throughout the PS1, I think. But yeah.
Oh, no, that's heresy right there.
Oh, well,
heresy. No, Final Fantasy VII is a very overrated game. And so that is a controversial statement, but it is.
But
Final Fantasy
I was young. I
didn't
have a sense of patience. That was the thing as well. It's just like
well, they're a grind fest as well, especially the early ones, which people don't really realise, which is a shame.
Yeah,
which is a shame, definitely. And obviously, a lot of the characters can be a bit emo as well, which
Yeah, that really
I don't
just...
know why the Japanese have a fascination with bizarre emo characters, but there we are. But now, one thing I would like to say at the moment, people, as well, is the Yakuza games are going very cheap at the moment, especially in England. You can get like Yakuza 4 for about £10 at the moment if you go on Amazon or places like that.
Oh, it's the same.
And they are very good value for money, really good value for money. I mean, usually the story mode will take you, if you just do the story mode without any of the side missions or, various other things, you're sort of talking about 20, 30 hours, and it is essentially, basically, a sort of a fighting game, beat 'em up. As you know, I do have a soft spot for the old scrolling beat 'em ups and hack and slash games. But it's the story that makes it for me. Again, I was capturing some footage. I've done Yakuza, and I was capturing the footage the other day. Again, I was getting engrossed in the story. You just do. The acting's really good in it. Really good Japanese actors, and the facial animation and stuff, and the detail as well on the characters. Fantastic, really good. But I have to say, I do enjoy the fighting in it as well. It's really, really funny. Some devastating moves you can bring out, and it's got that really good sense of immersion as well in the city. As you go around, it's really well lit. I mean, the graphics are not brilliant. Don't get me wrong; they're not the most amazing graphics.
Through on it, and it's still reasonable. And
I mean, the transition from cutscene to actual game isn't that jarring.
No, I can see
because
the immersion level.
They've learned a bit, you see, number 4. They know that the graphics aren't as good, but they kind of ease it in certain situations where you'll go from the cutscene into the game and it'll be zoomed in on his face, and so the cutscene, it's not as jarring, isn't the transition, if you know what I mean? It's not just suddenly like you're looking at a smaller rendered sprite of him or whatever.
No, it makes good sense.
But definitely people, seek out the Yakuza game and get your hands on it, because you won't regret it. They are good fun. I mean, some of the mini games are really good as well. You can go bowling and play pool and do table tennis. I saw
the whole table tennis, where the aim of the game is just to stare at tits while playing tennis.
hit the ball at boobs. Yeah.
And
that's the Japanese perviness there.
Yeah, it all gets a bit weird, especially the whole massage parlour stuff as well, where it's just moving around the sticks, I believe. Yes, it does get a bit strange. But you do have those little collectibles you can get and stuff, and there's a good leveling up system as well in it. You unlock new combos and new taunts and new skills with weapons and stuff, and it's actually quite a deep game. It's not as mindless as it first appears, people, and it's a game that you can really get immersed in as well. Going around the city and sort of wandering around and going to the arcade and go to Sega World and go on various arcade games and various other things like that, which is totally awesome. It's just shameless self-advertising.
For me, there's nothing wrong with playing the classics, especially even getting free in a game like that. It's not too bad. But I have to say, for me personally, really great series, and I've always really enjoyed them, and they remind me of good memories with Shenmue on the Dreamcast, which, by the way, people, is the greatest console of all time. And yes, it is. NG Dev Team still making games for the Dreamcast. Big respect to you guys. And Gunlord is one of the best games of last year, and we will be featuring that on a future show. If you're thinking, what the hell is Gunlord? Well, it's like Turrican, and if you don't know what that is, you shouldn't be watching this show.
Isn't that meant to be heading towards other platforms in future?
It is indeed, people, yes. Well done, well reminded, yes it is. NG Dev Team have become a Wii U developer. And I believe it's coming on the 3DS as well, so they're going to be releasing Gunlord and a lot of their old top-down shooters that they've done as well. So, yeah, totally awesome. Really good studio. Love those guys.
I might just have to try and retrieve my 3DS from my girlfriend, to be honest, for Gunlord.
Dude, yeah, Gunlord. Look, the soundtrack on Gunlord is just unbelievable.
You sent me some of the audio a good few months back, and
I did.
I mean, I haven't played Gunlord yet. It's been looking really good, but that soundtrack was actually pretty damn decent, I got to say.
It's a rocking soundtrack, people. Awesome soundtrack. One of the great soundtracks. No, it is. It is a fantastic soundtrack.
And it is just
now moving along to game number 2, which I know is one that tickled your fancy when I informed you about this, is Front Mission 3 on the PS1. which was released by Squaresoft back in 2000 and is available on PlayStation Network for download. I picked it up for £3.79. Now, what an absolute bargain that is for 150 hours worth of gameplay. Now, essentially, it's a tactical role-playing game, very similar to games like Final Fantasy Tactics, or in sort of the more modern era, people will be more familiar with XCOM, one of the great games of last year. A fantastic game was XCOM. But instead of being sort of high fantasy or men running around, you are piloting mechs. Now, we all love mechs. They are called Wanzers in this, and you can customise your mechs. You can get various guns, various body parts, legs. And I have to say, for a PS1 game, it looks really, really good. I mean, obviously,
yeah,
it was one of the later games out on the PS1 as well. I mean, I personally missed it originally the first time round because I'd moved on to the Dreamcast and then onto the PS2. But I know you're quite interested about this, aren't you? What are your views from what you've learned and seen so far?
Yeah, I mean, I've since you mentioned it, I did go off and have a little bit of a look into it, and apart from the sheer amount of gameplay that's in it, as you've said, it's 150 hours. You've literally got 2 games on one disc. It's
absolutely
it's 2 characters where their stories kind of intertwine as you're going through. But like as you're playing it, from the start of it, when you've seen the initial gameplay, it kind of just reminds you of chess, but with mechs, to be honest. But it, like, once you get into it, I'm a bit of a fan of these style tactical games. It really just did the PS1 really well, and I'm planning to get it downloaded onto the Vita if I can. I'm gonna have to check in for the store for it. Hopefully it's in there because it was damn good to look at. I mean, I've never even got to play it. I completely missed back so many years ago, but there's stuff
that's
like
a fantastic game.
With the combat in there as well, it's you are like, you can pick up which part you're going to attack. There's stuff like you can attack the robot's actual cockpit to actually send the pilot out, and you can force them to eject and fight on foot and all kinds of things. It's been
it's beautiful. You
really
can target arms. It's really good. It does actually bring a lot of depth. I mean, I first got into the series back on the SNES when I imported Front Mission 1 from America back in the day, a long time ago. Really good game, actually. If anybody's got a SNES emulator or whatever, I would definitely recommend seeking that out. Exceptionally good game. And really good graphics, actually, on the Super Nintendo. And the level of tactics and stuff is really good. Now, the one thing I will say, the music as well on it, I was really surprised. Really good music.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was one of the composers from one of the Final Fantasy games who's done the music. And I was like, bloody hell, this is unbelievable. And also, I love there's little details in it as well that just show it's a bit ahead of its time as well. For instance, when you're at certain sections of the game, you can actually sign into like a little internet on the game, and there's like emails you can send to people, and you can do research, on various websites and things like that. And it just sort of more immerses you, in the world and the story. Now, as you alluded to earlier, that is one of the new features in number 3, where the role-playing side and the story is come more to the fore as well. And as you said, there are 2 stories that intersect at certain points, but they're actually very separate stories. You can literally play the game 2 completely different ways and get 2 completely different endings, which, come on, people, for £3.79 is unbelievable. It's an absolute bargain. Graphically very good for the PS1, and obviously if you get it on the PS3, which I've done, you can upscale the graphics as well, so they look a hell of a lot better than they did back in the day. I mean, obviously the PS1 to some degree has never really aged too well, but also the variety of missions you get up to are really good. You can go, they sort of go from seek and destroy missions, or general all-out big battles to capturing other wanzers that you have to get, where you can, just get the cockpit and get the guy to get out, and you have to hijack things. Also stealth missions as well, and it's really good. Very deep, very involving. A friend of mine actually came round a number of weeks ago, and he saw me playing it. And he promptly went home and bought it instantly. He actually went on eBay and bought the PS1 version and shoved it in his PS2. Oh yes, people, get this game. It is fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough, and it's a good entry point to the series as well, because the stories. The thing with the front mission games is the stories all intersect, and and they're all sort of an ongoing series. But I have to say, I'm very disappointed that they haven't released any recently over in the UK, on the PS3 or whatever. I'm not entirely sure if some came out in America on the PS3. I'll have to check into that and maybe get one. But I know Mark on Classic Game Room, he's a big fan of this game as well. He loves it, and it is fantastic. If you love strategy role-playing games, guys, don't even hesitate to look into it at all. No. I mean, what impressed you the most when you sort of look at it and have been looking into it?
I gotta say, it was just the attention to detail and the fact that it was still very much like the gameplay was still going to be simplified. They actually said it was a lot more simplified compared to the previous games anyway.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but it's a lot more accessible.
Yeah, like the accessibility in it was just simple enough, because for me to get into some of these old games as well, it's the amount of information you go through just to try and function on certain levels. Now, with the time I've got, I don't have the time to spend trying to learn controls and then get to play it. I really do need to be able to just sink in quite quickly. And this game has been shown to me that it's like, you can just jump in, do your quick tutorial, and it's fairly straightforward. You just got to figure your tactics out as you go. And it's like you told me at the beginning of the week, and I started researching, and it's just like, yep, this is a good game, I gotta say. And
it's something you should definitely pick up. Yeah, definitely. You and everybody else who is listening to this, you should definitely seek it out. It's an excellent game. It's a really good, a really good story as well. I mean, Square, I don't, to be honest, and this is a bit of a minor rant, they really have recently focused too much on Final Fantasy. They need to get back into doing the games like Front Mission. Another classic from the PS1 era that I will do a video on as well at some point is Vagrant Story. If any of their back catalogue needs a re-release or a remake or a sequel, it's Vagrant Story. Unbelievable game, but we'll get into that another time. Those of you out there who do know what I'm talking about will exactly know what that is. A fantastic game. One of the first RPGs to use actual real-time combat whilst you're moving around at the same time. Amazing. Fantastic game. Way ahead of its time, and a cracking dungeon crawler as well. Amazing weapon forging system. I mean, technically the game never ends. You can just keep going back into the dungeons and creating more havoc and making more crazy weapons. But yes, people, seek out Front Mission 3. It's not hard to find, and it's very cheap on the PlayStation Network. So you've got no excuse. Create some hype. Let's get some more Front Missions. Now the next one, game number 3, is a game that's very close to my heart, and is going to be also used in a feature we will be doing about how important music is in games. Now this game is already good, but when it's played with the Conan the Barbarian soundtrack from 1982 in the background, well, this game goes into a whole new level. And the game is Viking: The Battle of Asgard, by the Creative Assembly and published by Sega on the 360, PS3 and PC back in 2008. Now, as many of you who know us on the show, we do like our hack and slash games and our mindless beat-em-ups. Now, this one, though, is slightly different. Well, we do. Slightly different because it has open world to be explored. There's three sort of main continents. And the game's very interesting how it's set up. The main character, Scarin, who you are, he gets killed at the beginning in a big battle and is resurrected by Freya, the god of war. This is all based on Norse mythology. And he's tasked with helping her defeat the forces of Hell and save the mortal realm of Midgard. Now, Hell is basically, her plot is to unleash Fenrir, the wolf god, who will bring around Ragnarok and destroy the world. And, so that's bad news for everybody. Anyway, in order to be able to take on Hell and her minions, you have to go around sort of accomplishing various little tasks, like rescuing guys who've been captured in some fortresses, or liberating a mine so you can get more resources, or finding more barrels of beer to keep the men and their spirits up. Exactly. There's nothing wrong with that, is there?
That's the beginning of the game as well, isn't it?
Yeah, there's some. Yeah, you have to do a lot of little mini missions. Now, what it does have is the more you explore of the map and the more missions you complete, the more of the map is revealed. It has that kind of fog of war, from Command and Conquer and things like that. And also you have to power up your swords and axes. You have to put runes on them. You've got like little bits of magic you can use, and various extra moves come along in time that you go get trained in and stuff. It's not as mindless as you initially think. You also have to go out and find and recruit some dragons, which ultimately will help you in battle later on. Now, I know you've been watching a bit of this game, Matthew, and you're very intrigued by this, aren't you?
Yeah, initially it comes off as like a Norse-styled fable, to be honest. Like, that's the initial reaction. It was the way the graphics come off and how the dialogue is presented. And unfortunately, I've got to say, the voice acting in the initial cutscene is just... It's alright, but at the same time,
it sounds like Brian Blessed on acid.
Yeah. And that's where I was starting to get that feeling.
Which is a good or bad thing, depending on your point of view.
It was just... Yeah, it's like when you interact with characters, again, you're another voiceless hero.
Yes.
And, you've just come back from the dead. Hey, Maddie, would you like to go get me some more beer? Because everybody else is just wanting to get absolutely smashed. Cause...
Well, they've been through terrible war. Of course you do.
Yeah. We've had a hard day pillaging and killing orc thing men's.
Now, the one thing I will say, once you've completed all the little missions you have to do, then we get to the real meat and gravy of the game, where the big set-piece battles happen, where you have to invade a fortress, or, take over a huge part of land. Now, this is where some of the things like the dragons come into play. You're basically one man in this huge... But there's hundreds and hundreds of people on screen all at once, in this huge fight.
Oh, it's like looking
at the dragons
Horizon,
are really good, because what you have to do is you have to kill certain big enemies, during the battle, and you get these dragon runes. What they enable you to do then is summon in dragons, and you can actually go into like the dragon's eye view and select, what targets you'd like them to destroy, be it big siege towers or massive giants or various other things, which adds, another level of detail and strategy to what initially appears just to be some sort of mindless hack and slash. Now, obviously, we can't go any further without talking about the gory finishing moves, which are fantastic, and also serve a purpose, giving you health orbs, putting more magic back on. Never enough, you can never have too much magic when you're in the middle of a massive 100 siege battle. Now, I have to say, the big siege battles are fantastic and very impressive. I mean, even to this day. I mean, you talk about it's from the guys who made the Total War series, and I'd love to see a Total War game on the next generation. I think actually a Total War game would run really well with Kinect. Actually, one of the few things that probably would run well with Kinect is a big real-time strategy. So if that does happen, remember I called it first, and Microsoft, you owe me money if that does happen. Now, as I've mentioned earlier, there are some light RPG elements. You upgrade your weapons and magic, and you get new moves and so forth. But the great thing about this game is that it's completely overlooked. Nobody has bought it for years, and it now goes for literally about £2 or £3. I mean, I saw it on the Steam sale the other day for £2.95. Now, in anybody's book, they should go pick this game up. If you like Dynasty Warriors, if you like Space Marine, if you like any sort of hack and slash game, go get it. And visually, it's very nice. There's some nice subtle elements, like, the water effects are really nice. The character sprites look quite good. It's got a nice sort of shimmering lighting effect as well to the various characters and landscapes. And the fact is, it's broken up in the sense that it's not a game that you have to spend hours on. I mean, you can do if you really enjoy it. And I think if you put the Conan the Barbarian soundtrack on like I did whilst you're playing it, you will become fully immersed and believe that you are Conan, which I did. And there's nothing wrong with that, people.
They do just want to scream that role play out for you, though. It is just...
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. Honestly, there's a certain song on Conan where it goes on about, there's Mako narrating, saying, it was in an age of magic, Conan arose, and I was stood there with the camera panning round Scarron, and then steamed off into battle with the full music on. It was totally awesome. Totally awesome. I mean, what were your impressions of it when you saw it? Did you think, yeah, this looks pretty... And I have to say as well, by the way, the ending's really good. I'm not going to ruin it for anybody, but the ending is fantastic. It's a really good ending. Yeah. I mean, what did you think? Do you think it might be something that you might have a go at, Matt, for, £2 or £3?
Yeah, like, once you get... Like, I was just mainly watching through it. Once you get past the initial intro to it, and you actually get into more of the nitty-gritty, it does get a whole lot better, I gotta say.
Oh yeah, the stealth elements. There's loads of stuff to do. It's a deceptive game, actually. It appears very simple at first, but it's not. And there's actually a lot of skill to the combat as well.
And
it's not just simply bashing buttons.
Yeah, and it's, as much as I don't regret picking it up back in 2008, because there was a sure as hell good reason why I didn't pick up many games in 2008.
Well, it came out around the same time as Grand Theft.
Exactly. That was...
I don't know who at Sega decided they were going to do that marketing tactic, but yeah.
Well, again, what was it? Killzone came out on was it the same day as 5? Was it Mercenaries? I remember there was a Killzone game.
So. Yeah. The new Killzone on the Vita.
Exactly. Look, it's just completely gone over our heads. I mean, I've even got a Vita, and I didn't even bother picking it up because I knew 5 was coming out. So it's just a good example of when there's something else that's major on the line for that specific day. Don't release anything around that time, because that's good luck, I'd say. If you can outbeat a game like GTA at that point of the year, then fuck you.
I don't understand why people even bother releasing games around the time like that.
November is understandable.
It's pointless.
That November rush for Christmas, but yeah,
it's totally pointless, people. The only game that can go up against Call of Duty is Battlefield and GTA, or maybe Halo.
Halo, yeah. Mind you, there's Halo 4 last year. Honestly, I didn't get into it that much as what I did with the previous games, and it was odd.
It's a good game.
Yeah, and I just never saw that like major release at that time of the year to go down as well as I thought it was going to go.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest selling single console releases, isn't it, of all time? It's Halo 4. Which is very impressive. Which is very impressive.
But at the same time,
I enjoyed Halo 4, to be honest.
You just didn't see the amount of madness that occurs around a Halo release.
No. I mean, it was a lot more gritty. I was very sort of wary about Halo 4 because obviously new team, but then when you actually read into it, you know the team was headed up by the guy who originally developed Halo 1.
It was pretty much Bungie,
half
but with
the
a
Reach
different
team,
name.
which is my favourite Halo game, is Halo Reach. You know, fantastic soundtrack, great levels, brilliant. Once you started to read into it, though, you realised that it was going to be good, and it was a bold new step for them. You know, they had to distance themselves from the old Halos. It was a lot more gritty. You know, it was more of a study on the relationship between the Chief and Cortana, which is just a bizarre relationship in the first place. You know, having an intimate relationship with some crazy computer bird who's in your head. Yeah, bit weird.
I gotta say, I did like how that relationship kind of went with the two characters, because it really was something that would obviously go through such a soldier's head. You know, and it
was a good
works.
character study, was the game. It's underrated. Again, the story in that game is underrated. It's a good story. It's well told as well.
That was a very well told game, but yeah, it just didn't get the it got the audience, but it didn't get what it deserved. And
no, a lot of people say they don't like it, but I don't know why. It's an exceptionally good Halo game.
The story was really good. It was just the gameplay, to be honest. Like, although
it was very much like there was a lot like Call of Duty. But the thing is, finally they put a run button in at last, which you do need in a Halo game
rather than a power up.
We've got to modernise. We've got to modernise. You know, we do have to move on, and game mechanics do have to move on. We can't stay stuck in 2001 or 2007 or whatever. Things do have to move on, and obviously they are going to get influenced, aren't they, by other games and so on. But I did like it. However, after the shambles and debauchery of Microsoft trying to take game ownership away from us and so forth, I'm not entirely sure if I will play Halo 5 yet. I'm still not sure whether I'm going to get an Xbox One.
I'm still thinking about it. I probably will get one in the end, but at the moment I'm just sitting there, like, throwing up the choice between the two consoles. It's just the one thing that does bother me is about the Xbox, how although they want to go multifunction, they've taken a lot more power out of what could be put into games. And although the initial start of the next generation, the initial start, you won't really be able to see much difference. But as developers get to work around more on the games, we are going to be seeing...
I think you will on the PS4. You will see when their exclusives come out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like the PS4 will have just that extra bit of power because of the allocation. Both consoles.
I mean, what's made my mind up on which one I'm going to get, which will be the PS4, but I'm not getting any of them at launch because I just don't see any games that I can't get on my PC or other formats.
Oh no.
You know, there's no killer app. That's the thing. But I think I will get the PS4 first, simply because when I look at my collection of 360 games and PS3 games, the PS3 games are all exclusive to the PS3, whereas the games on my Xbox are all the games that were multi-format, but obviously the Xbox generally had the better multi-format games. I think this is where Microsoft got lucky this time round, you know, because the PS3 was such an arse to program for.
Yeah.
And Sony sort of kind of believed their own hype that people would just wait for the PlayStation because it was so ingrained in everybody's psyche since the 90s. You know, they missed a trick, and I bought all the platform games on the Xbox. I mean, Skyrim is a prime example of, you know, a complete debacle and shambles on the PS3. Absolutely terrible. I mean, it took them 7-8 months, didn't it, to fix that? So, but I think this time round, Sony have learned, and you know, they've talked to developers, and they've made, you know, the better system. It's more powerful. I mean, there's been some articles recently, haven't there, of developers, multi-format developers coming out saying, yeah, there is a noticeable, you know, difference. I mean, some even saying 50% more powerful. I mean, I know for a fact the graphics card is better on the PS3. I know that for a fact. Now, the only thing I am sort of a bit confused about is they're using DDR5 or GDDR5 RAM, which is what I have in my graphics cards on my PC. But obviously you still get DDR3 RAM for your PC just to run everything, you know, in general. So I'm not entirely sure how that's going to pan out. I mean, apparently it's really good for graphics and so forth, but maybe not as good for transferring, you know, memory and other things around. We'll have to see. How it pans out.
And it's like, to be honest, I know I'm going to probably end up with both consoles just sitting there next to the TV kind of thing. But it would just be good to see which one's going to get used, because at the moment, it's like I've got my 360 and I've got my PS3, and the PS3 is barely plugged in, and yeah, even if the PS4, I mean, is more powerful, it's like it's going to be more about who is everybody else using kind of thing. Like, if we both end up deciding, alright, we'll probably end up carrying on with the Xbox, who knows?
That's not happening.
Well,
I can tell you that right now.
You don't
it's not happening.
Maybe for you, but like, we've got old friends on there on XBL. We'll probably still be wanting to chat with, kind of thing. And some might have not.
I've told everybody to get a PS4. I've told everybody. Why spend more money on an underpowered machine? And let's be honest, Microsoft could quite easily bring back those policies. You know,
yeah.
That's the thing for me. They have tried to take away game ownership from me. You know, when I pay £40 for a game, I can do what I want with it. If I want to lend it to my friends, I can. If I want to go sell it, I can. If I want to just put it in the toilet, I will do. You know. Now, I don't mind as much on the PC because you know, Steam is a really good platform. It's got exceptionally cheap games, and
they're releasing
the PC has always
system.
been like the PC has always been like that. You know, ever since the 90s, you got a game code, you installed the game, and you couldn't lend it to anybody. That's just how it is. And to be honest, not many people I know have a rig like I do anyway, so it doesn't really fit in. Whereas console gaming is more about going round to your friend's house and taking your games around and, you know, showing them new games. I mean, like you, I've sent you stuff to Australia, haven't I, and various other things. I couldn't have done that.
Yeah,
if Microsoft had carried on with their bizarre, you know, wannabe Steam.
I just stand in the post office, look with an awkward face, trying to get a Tomahawk to go through to England as well. But you know, you send games, I just send merchandise.
Yeah, it was good. I've got my Tomahawk, completely awesome. Now, the final game we want to talk about is on the Nintendo Wii from 2009, and it is Little King's Story. Now, this game was basically made by some of the greats of Japanese game development. They all got together and said, you know what, we're going to make a game. Such names as Yasuhiro Wada, the creator of Harvest Moon, Kazuyuki Kurashima, who did the artwork for Super Mario RPG and Moon RPG Remix, amongst others, and Yoshihiro Kimura, who worked on the Moon RPG Remix as well, and Tulip, two very beloved games. And also, there were a lot of developers from Final Fantasy XII, Kingdom Hearts, and Lost Odyssey on the Xbox. Now, if we said that list of games to most people, everybody would be like, wow, we need to own that game. But unfortunately, Little King's Story is very much ignored. Now, you've been having a look into this, haven't you, Matthew, as well? Why do you think it has been ignored?
The unfortunate thing is, it's like I actually, when I started looking into it, I realised I have actually played this game before. And,
yes.
Yeah, not only just seen it, I have actually played it before. And it was a while ago. The problem that really happened was, in a good way, it was alright to back with Nintendo. But the problem is, when you back with Nintendo and you release a game like Little King's Story,
which is very similar to Pikmin.
Yeah, well, it is. There's a lot of things similar to Pikmin, and Pikmin still do a lot of things right compared. But the problem is, when you release a kids game on a platform like Nintendo, when you're trying,
it's not a kids game.
When you well, no, it looks more like a kids game. That's the problem.
Yes, well, it's got a very stylised art design, hasn't it? Sort of a watercolour.
It's got a bit of morbid humour into it, I've got to say. But
yeah, it's pretty funny actually.
But when you've got that design, just imagine you're in a shop, you're looking through games, kind of thing. Especially us at our age, kind of thing. We are usually looking for something that looks reasonably.
I'm 15.
Pardon? We are looking for something reasonably mature.
Yes.
And that was the issue. When you look through a whole pile of Nintendo Wii games, it really
maybe
is.
That's a problem on our part. We shouldn't be looking for something mature. We should be looking for something that's good to play.
But at the same time, it's although its target audience was made to look more for children, kind of thing. I mean, people like me, I never really went on the Wii that much. I mean, I played stuff like Dead Space Extraction. I was still playing the more adult games. I'd rather not be like forced through magical worlds and try to relive the childhood on acid. You know,
you leave Little King Story alone. It's one of the greatest games of all time. How dare you?
No, it is a good game, but it's just
a very good game.
The appearance would turn quite a large
most
audience
people away.
area.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. This is
why it flops.
we are here. This is why we are here.
Yeah.
And this is why people need to buy it. Now, the premise of the game, you know, you're a little boy who finds out that he's actually a king, and basically, it's very much like Pikmin. You go around recruiting villagers and minions to do your bidding, be it digging for treasure or chopping wood or farming. And then as the game progresses, you're able to earn money, buy new sort of structures like training facilities for farmers and soldiers and so forth. And you end up, it ends up being quite in-depth actually. I mean, it's about 20 or 30 hours as well. It's quite a big game. Now, you've obviously got to keep your population happy. You've got quite an in-depth stat tracking system as well. It tracks stats such as population, finances, various other things. I mean, the thing I have to say about the game as well is all the menus are really easily accessible. It does a very good job of explaining some slightly complicated things really easily.
In a short amount of time as well.
It takes probably which is really credible.
It takes about probably 15 minutes before you're pretty much getting way into it, kind of thing. You just you know a majority of what you have to do in the game, and you're just straight into it. And,
I mean, eases things in nicely. I mean, after about an hour or two, you're in there and you're building new structures, training people, and going out and treasure hunting and various other things, fighting the possessed turnips, which I just found hilarious. I love the bit as well where they have this magical beach where if you die, you get washed up on this magical beach. Brilliant. And the guy says to you, "Well, it doesn't happen all the time." Well, yeah, it does. It does actually. But when you're walking around though in the game world, it's got a really nice sort of art style, hasn't it? It's got like a slightly watercoloured art style. It kind of reminded me a bit of like a watercoloured Animal Crossing, which was very nice. I loved Animal Crossing, by the way. Completely addicted to that. And that's a game actually I need to get on the 3DS. But that's a conversation for another story. Now, obviously the combat, the king himself is quite weak. You have to use your minions, very like Pikmin, there's a certain amount of minions that will have to fight certain enemies and various things. And you can also, sort of order various citizens around to build certain buildings or go farming or do other things. And the beauty of it is, the better, sort of your kingdom becomes, you can have more and more people that you can lead around. So you can really get some serious multitasking going, which is excellent. Now, there is, some levels of depth in it. Certain jobs allow citizens different capabilities and weaknesses. Like farmers are really good at going around digging holes, obviously, and finding treasure, whereas soldiers can't even do any of that and are just really good at fighting. Now, one of my sort of bugbears with it, I suppose, is that it's not very apparent to begin with how important some of the side quests are in the game, which appear in a suggestions box in town, which you sort of build after about an hour. And they are actually very important to progressing in the game. And I think having that is one thing that wasn't really explained too well. I mean, how did you find it when you played it? It's a very addictive game, isn't it? Once you sort of get the hang of it and start starting, and the controls are really good as well, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, the controls were really well done. Unfortunately, I do have to say that when it comes to games like Pikmin, Pikmin did the controls just a tiny bit better, I've got to say. One of the main issues I had with this game was when you had a posse of townsfolk that just got a bit too large. Good luck with stairs. I'm just saying that was.
Yes.
It may take you 15 minutes to learn the game, but it will take you about half an hour to get the posse up the stairs.
Yeah. Yes.
That was the most infuriating thing. Boss battles are nothing. You find a set of stairs,
you're in trouble, buddy.
Good luck.
Yeah. I mean, one of the other good things as well is it's not just a simple case of go around farming and everything. You do actually have to invade other kingdoms and all these other, it's not just a simple case of go around farming and do various other things. You actually have to invade other kingdoms, and then you have a parade the next day, which is awesome, which I found delightful.
Yeah, so the majority of social interactions are delayed for an extra day, but then the days are only about 10 to 15
that can be a bit
long
annoying
anyway. So
yeah, it can be a bit annoying for that. But yes, people, go seek out Little King's story as well, and do not be fooled by the childish, presentation and so forth. It is an excellent game.
There is just some nice morbid humour in there, though.
It does have some very black humour. Yeah, it's really good. It's not just for kids, but it's definitely a game that's good for kids and adults to play together. Definitely, really good, really good. Now, we've just got before we leave you, we've just got to let you know that I will be returning to university next week, and Matthew does have quite a lot on with his work. So the dates we upload videos may have to change, and obviously we're going to have to do some slightly shorter shows and so forth. But do not worry, people. Gaming Sanity is here for you. We are going to continue our look back at overlooked games over the coming weeks. We may have to just feature maybe 1 or 2 games a week. We're not entirely sure yet, but we will keep you updated. But next week, people, it's going to be a good one. I will leave a little trailer just at the end of this video to give you a little snippet of what it's going to be. Now, also, we are going to be creating some T-shirts and so forth. So if any of you want some, we'll have a little competition. Maybe the 50th subscriber can have a free T-shirt and so on. But obviously, our loyal fans, we know who you are. You will be getting some T-shirts, and please enjoy those. You will do. They are completely awesome. So it's goodbye from me,
and goodbye from me,
and it's goodbye from him. And please just remember, people, to rate, comment, and subscribe, because we love you all. And until next time.